Carlos King secretly protecting Marsau and LaTisha Scott. Is he editing their storyline differently? Cutting things out? Covering up parts of their reality? People argued about it endlessly. Some swore he favored them, while others suspected he was hiding something even deeper. But then, on an ordinary evening that felt like any other, Carlos logged onto Facebook, not Instagram, not YouTube, not a podcast, and posted something no one expected. Screenshots, emails, messages, and private conversations that showed he had stayed quiet far too long. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to go back to the beginning, before the show, before the drama, before fans were divided. At the start, everything was about trust. Carlos created Love and Marriage with one mission: to show real Black love, real Black families, real Black success. He didn't want scripted moments or fake scenes. He wanted truth, raw and unfiltered. When he met Marsau and LaTisha, he didn't just see a couple. He saw possibility, a love story rooted in ambition, tradition, and legacy. They weren't just building businesses, they were building a name, a future, a family foundation. Carlos believed in them. But reality TV changes people. What starts as storytelling quickly becomes survival. The Scotts were fan favorites at first, loved for their unity, their hustle, and their Southern charm. Then viewers started noticing more Marsau's comments about marital roles, his firm tone during disagreements, and his avoidance of certain questions about loyalty or respect. LaTisha's silence started speaking louder than her words, leaving fans to wonder if she was protecting her marriage or protecting herself. Behind the cameras, the atmosphere was shifting. According to what Carlos revealed, Marsau and LaTisha slowly began requesting scenes to be removed, refusing certain conversations, and blocking topics they didn't want filmed. The show was rolling, but not everything was making it to the screen. What viewers thought was privacy was actually production struggling to tell a complete story, because you can't produce reality TV when people only want a filtered version of their reality. Carlos, who always defended his cast, found himself in a tight, uncomfortable place. Here's the twist. Carlos didn't expose them in a messy way. He didn't drag them or humiliate them. He did was more powerful. He told the truth about himself. For years, people accused him of stirring drama, destroying marriages, manipulating storylines, and being messy for ratings, and he stayed silent. But this time, he spoke to protect his name, because silence, after a while, starts to look like guilt. In the receipts he posted, he showed messages where Marsau reportedly shut down filming certain moments that doesn't need to be on TV. "Keep that off the show. My family can't go through that." Carlos posted proof that he just didn't push certain storylines. He actually stopped them, not because he didn't have the tea, but because he thought the truth would hurt them more than help. One email stood out the most. Carlos wrote, "Marriage isn't just entertainment. Some moments aren't meant for TV." That one sentence flipped the entire internet. Fans who once called him manipulative paused. Maybe he wasn't hiding a scandal. Maybe he was protecting a family. He didn't confirm anything or expose a secret, but he made something very clear. There was more going on than any episode ever showed. When he ended his post with, "People think I exposed them. The truth is, I covered them," everything changed. Suddenly, viewers didn't see LaTisha as weak. They saw a wife carrying burdens we never saw on camera. They didn't see Marsau as just defensive. They saw a man trying to shield something deeper. And Carlos, he didn't look like a puppeteer. He looked like someone who protected his cast at the cost of his own reputation. Emotionally, this wasn't just drama. It was a wake-up call. If this was the version he covered, then what would the show have looked like if he hadn't? All right. The Scotts still be together. Would the show have survived? Would the fan base be the same? Now, the Scotts' silence says more than a statement ever could. Cast members are speaking carefully. Nobody wants to be next. Carlos didn't just expose messages. He exposed the reality of reality TV. Sometimes the biggest truths are the ones we don't see. This wasn't the end of anything. It was the start of a shift. Carlos finally defended his integrity and, in doing so, he changed how fans view the entire franchise. Now the questions begin. Will Marsau and LaTisha respond? Will more receipts drop? Will Carlos stay quiet again? Or has this opened the door to something bigger? Because this wasn't just a post, it was a warning. And the truth. The truth always finds its way out. So tell me, after everything he revealed, do you think Carlos was protecting the Scotts or protecting himself? The fallout from Carlos' post didn't happen overnight. It was slow, almost seismic. Fans scrolled, reread messages, debated online, and shared screenshots. Social media lit up with theories, defenses, and accusations. But the conversation had changed. People weren't just arguing over who was right or wrong anymore. They were thinking. They were questioning what they had assumed about reality TV all along. They were realizing that behind every edited scene, every quiet moment, there could be a reason, a choice, or a protection. And suddenly, the lens wasn't just on. Marsau or LaTisha was on the industry itself, on the fine line between storytelling and exploitation. Cast members started to tread lightly. Every comment, every post, every subtle interaction online was measured. Nobody wanted to be next in a post that could shift public perception so dramatically. Carlos' move had done more than defend his name. It had reminded everyone that producers are not just observers, they are custodians of their cast's reality. And in this case, his silence had not been neglect, but a deliberate act of protection, one that carried risks of its own. Meanwhile, the Scotts' silence was deafening. No public statement, no response, no clarification. But in the world of reality TV, silence can speak louder than any statement. Fans speculated endlessly. Were they grateful, angry, relieved? Or perhaps concerned that more truths might surface? The tension hung in the air, a quiet storm, because now the audience knew that what they were seeing was only part of the story, and what they weren't seeing might be far more important. And for Carlos, this post was more than a defense, it was a declaration. It was a line in the sand that said, "I will not let my integrity be questioned while protecting those who trusted me." Whether viewers agreed with his approach or not, one thing was undeniable. He had shifted the narrative. The conversation was no longer about scandal or gossip, it was about trust, responsibility, and the ethical tightrope of reality television. Now everyone was waiting to see if the Scotts would finally break their silence, waiting to see if other cast members would reveal what had been hidden, waiting to see how the franchise itself would evolve. Because in the end, this wasn't just a story about a single couple, a producer, or a Facebook post. It was a story about the unseen battles behind every camera, the choices that shape perception, and the truths that may never make it to the screen. Carlos had done more than defend his reputation. He had forced the industry and the fans to pause, reflect, and reconsider. And the big question lingered. If protecting someone sometimes looks like hiding the truth, then what does it say about the stories we consume and the lives we watch from a distance? Carlos King secretly protecting Marsau and LaTisha Scott. Is he editing their storyline differently? Cutting things out? Covering up parts of their reality? People argued about it endlessly. Some swore he favored them, while others suspected he was hiding something even deeper. But then, on an ordinary evening that felt like any other, Carlos logged onto Facebook, not Instagram, not YouTube, not a podcast, and posted something no one expected: screenshots, emails, messages, and private conversations that showed he had stayed quiet far too long. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to go back to the beginning, before the show, before the drama, before fans were divided. At the start, everything was about trust. Carlos created Love and Marriage with one mission: to show real Black love, real Black families, real Black success. He didn't want scripted moments or fake scenes. He wanted truth, raw and unfiltered. When he met Marsau and LaTisha, he didn't just see a couple. He saw possibility,